Hello, curiously chaotic humans. Welcome back to the show. This is the episode 5 of this series where we're going to talk about aliens and extraterrestrial creatures. Today, we have our favorite guest back again on the show to talk about this topic. Please welcome Dhananjay. Hello, friends. Welcome back. And today we are going to talk about alien life. Does alien life exist? So, for that, please welcome Dhananjay to our show again. Hi, Dhananjay.
Hi Shanky, thanks for having me again. I
You're
mean,
welcome. It's fun to have curious people on the show who can talk about a lot of things in life to satiate all the curiosity that all the listeners have.
the last time I was here, we talked about colonization, and I guess this topic isn't far off if we consider that. So I guess today we are going to be talking about extraterrestrial life.
Yeah. So, aliens, what do you think? Like, do aliens actually exist or do they live among us?
They probably exist, but they probably aren't what we perceive them to be. Generally, we talked about this the last time as well.
Hmm.
Generally, when we talk about aliens, people think little green men. People think those gray aliens with long fingers, or people think Jadoo. But
Uh,
it is very much more likely that aliens are, or like rather, we shouldn't be calling them aliens.
hmm.
Extraterrestrial life is probably some single-celled or some multicellular organism, which is very simple. So we have more chances of finding a single cell organism,
Hmm.
much more than we have chances of finding little green men.
Well, I've seen Little Green Men on a lot of movies, so we have actually found those. Let's try to find the real ones. Like you said, like single cellular microorganisms can
Hmm.
be like extraterrestrial life on any planet. Could
Right?
it be on any moons, or is it possible that there might be extraterrestrial life that can live inside sun at that high temperatures?
Definitely not, because I'm pretty certain that inside these, the temperature inside the sun is much more than 50,000 degrees Celsius. So anything surviving inside there is quite impossible.
Hmm.
But so there is this very well-known theory called the Fermi Paradox, which says that there is a high probability of there being intelligent alien life. And the theory goes something like this: that there are billions of there are billions of stars within the Milky Way. Milky Way is somewhere around, I think, 50,000 50,000 light years long. Approximate, it's 50,000 light years is the radius. So it's somewhere around 1 lakh light years in diameter. Which means there are billions of planets. There are billions of stars which are similar to our sun,
Hmm.
and some of them are much more older than the sun.
Hmm.
Now, it is very prudent to assume that some of these stars,
Hmm.
quite a few percentage, you could say 30% or 20% or even 10% of these stars might have planets in their habitable zones,
Hmm.
meaning they would be just right for fostering life of some kind.
Hmm.
Um, Now, the theory goes something like this: that since these planets are these stars are much more older than our own sun,
Hmm.
which means that life should have evolved on these stars or within these star systems quite a while ago, probably millions of years ago.
Hmm.
And even if this life were to travel or were to begin to traverse the stars at their own pace or at an incredibly slow pace, such as what we are trying to do now. I think the last time when I was on your show, we talked about colonizing. So I
Hmm.
think we're taking those baby steps. I think we are just dreaming of colonizing other celestial bodies. Uh, but given that there are certain star systems which are billions of years older than our sun,
Hmm.
it is quite possible that life might have developed in these star systems billions of years ago.
Hmm.
And they might have propagated, or they should have technically propagated throughout the system again billions of years ago. So the question is, where is everybody? And this is exactly what astrophysicist Enrico Fermi had asked in the 1950s. So there is an overwhelming evidence that stars can support life. However, we don't see any life. And that is the Fermi paradox. What do you think?
That's a very good take on extraterrestrial life. So, if you consider this same scenario, like we on Earth, like human species is a predominant species,
Mm-hmm.
and we have, I think, pretty much reached the extent of evolution a human species can.
I mean, natural evolution, probably.
Natural evolution, yeah. And let's take the actual scenario of global warming, and within like let's take like a century or so, the temperature would be so high that it would be literally inhabitable. I'm taking the worst
Probably in
case
a million
scenario here.
years.
Yeah.
Probably in a million years, or probably in a billion years.
Okay,
Maybe.
let's take a billion years, and it will be completely inhabitable. So where would human civilization be actually be? So if you
Right?
ask,
Are you even certain that humans are going to survive that long? I
probably
mean,
not. So that's the same case scenario when you're saying, okay, there might have been civilization in another system, another star system in our own Milky Way,
oh, definitely,
and they have
definitely.
lived and died a long time ago. That's why we cannot see them.
That is quite possible because we have been looking for alien civilizations for what, like 70 years?
Hmm.
We discovered radio waves little somewhere around 100 years ago, plus or minus 10.
Hmm.
We've been actively looking or we've been actively indulging in radio astronomy after the World War. So we've been looking at the stars for a very short amount of time. And given the overwhelming evidence, I think
Hmm.
it's wrong to assume that there's nothing out there when all the odds are stacked against it. It might be very well possible that there have been ancient civilizations which
Hmm.
existed in the past.
Hmm.
It might be very well possible that there are alien civilizations existing right now in this galaxy. But
Hmm.
due to the sheer size of this Milky Way,
Hmm.
I do not think it's possible to communicate with them in real time unless we have some faster than light mode of communication.
Hmm. So the lag of communication.
Yeah, again, what we talked about the last time. So
Yeah.
when you're talking in planetary terms,
Hmm.
it's a few hours, but when you're talking in stellar terms,
Hmm.
it's years, it's thousands of years.
Yeah. So what do you think is the possibility of alien life in our own solar system?
Not quite high, actually. I mean, well, not quite high, but there is a certain possibility. Um, So, for example, we we have definitive proof that
Hmm.
water once, like liquid water, once existed on Mars. We know this
Hmm.
because there are canyons
Yeah.
and there are geological features on the surface of planet Mars
Hmm.
which suggest that there might have been water flowing. There might have been rivers and seas within the planet.
Hmm.
And uh, one theory is that after the planet somehow lost its magnetic field, probably due to rapid cooling of its core,
Hmm.
the planet was no longer able to have this protective electromagnetic field around itself.
Hmm.
And because of that, slowly and steadily, the planet started losing atmosphere and the water boiled off. I mean, but we still have some water in the form of solids at the poles.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, so at one point of time, if liquid water did exist on Mars, it is highly possible that somewhere in those crevasses or somewhere in those deep caverns, there still might be liquid water existing, which might harbor microscopic life. It's very possible. Similarly, Jupiter's moons or Saturn's moons,
Hmm.
it's highly possible that now given that these celestial bodies are very far away from the sun, so they aren't receiving huge amounts of solar radiation to get the heat. Well, if you look at Earth,
Hmm.
um, we have we have found life growing in the strangest of places.
Hmm.
Biologists have been able to find life in deep sea, thermal vents. So like in the depths of the
Hmm.
ocean where the light from the sun can't even reach, it's completely dark there, the water is frigid cold.
Hmm.
um, but we found life surviving because of the undersea thermal vents. And if life is able to survive in such tough environments, it's very possible that we might find some single cellular or multicellular life in the seas of these celestial bodies. So it might be very possible that we might have life other than on planets other than Earth, in our solar system.
I have another theory basically.
All right.
That theory basically is if there's an extraterrestrial life,
Uh-huh.
let's not consider them to be constrained with the laws of physics or chemistry where life can only be formed with a carbon cell or a silica cell body.
Mm-hmm.
Considering like a life could exist in another dimension altogether, and that dimension is so far beyond we cannot perceive them. We cannot see them. We cannot touch them, but they do exist. And it's same for them. They cannot see us, perceive us, or touch us. So alien life could exist here at the same moment, at the same time, at the same place, without us even realizing there's a alien life or a extraterrestrial life existing.
Actually, there is a science fiction book which is written in the 1800s.
Mhm.
It's called Flatland.
Mhm.
If I'm not mistaken, it's written by Edwin Abbott or someone. Yeah, I think it's Edwin Abbott. So this novel Flatland, or this novella,
Mhm.
talks about life existing on different dimensions. So I think the premise of this book is that if you are a single dimension being,
Mhm.
there are only two possibilities: either you exist or you don't,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But if you're a two-dimensional being, you have length and breadth, right? So the theory goes like this: that if there exists beings which live in two dimensions,
Mhm.
okay, they don't have height, right? And because they have never heard the concept of height,
Mhm.
they don't know how to imagine it. Like for their brains, it's very difficult to imagine anything remotely near the third dimension, which is the z-axis, which is
Mhm.
height. Now, what the book talks about is that suddenly in this two-dimensional plane of existence, there enters a three-dimensional being,
Mhm.
right? But because of the physical constraints of these two-dimensional beings, they will not be able to perceive this three-dimensional being in its entire glory. Instead, what they're going to be seeing is a sectional view of this said three-dimensional being. Like, for example, if it were like a ball, uh, you know, what flatlanders would see would be a point which then grows to its maximum diameter and then shrinks and then blinks out of existence. So there could be a theory where one flatlander, after encountering a three-dimensional object,
Mhm.
could be like, I've seen something. It just emerged out of nowhere. It grew to its maximum size, then shrunk again and disappeared. And probably his friends are calling him that he's going nuts or something. But that's
Mhm.
very possible. Now, given that our brains are designed to think in three dimensions, it could be very possible that at this moment, I mean, it's not far off. I mean,
Mhm.
mathematically, it's proven that there are multiple dimensions.
Mhm.
So technically, there also could be life which exists in multiple dimensions, but we cannot perceive them and they cannot perceive us because we live in entirely different planes of existence. And again, I think we are bounding on pseudoscience a little bit.
That's
but
fine. Mhm.
but yeah, I think could be a possibility.
Like a being on a higher level of dimension that could be God, right?
I mean, not God, but like, okay. So Arthur C. Clarke was again a science fiction writer, and by now you might have guessed that I am a huge science fiction nerd.
Hmm.
But well, Arthur C. Clarke said that any technology which is sufficiently advanced is indistinguishable from magic, right? So if you probably showed the if probably early humans
Hmm.
who lived on the banks of River Nile
Hmm.
saw the technology that we had. I mean, you and I are sitting about 1,000 kilometers away from each other, and yet we are talking to each other like we're sitting right next to each other,
Yeah.
right? We have things in our pockets which are able to access the knowledge that the entire mankind has.
Hmm.
So this would have been akin to magic for those people. Now, just think about this. If, thousands of years later, when the technology is sufficiently advanced enough, us right now would think of that technology as magic. So it's entirely possible that there are life forms who have such advanced technologies that we might think of them like gods. I mean,
Oh,
doesn't mean they're gods, it just means that they have science.
wow. So everything pulls down to science basically. So the science that we understand right now, the physics that we understand right now is just the thing that we understand right now. It's something which we cannot contemplate to understand.
Yeah, maybe. Why not? I mean, who knows? Who knows what technology will be like 1,000 years from now? Who knows how it will be like 10,000 years from now?
Like who knows how humans will be from 10,000
Actually,
years.
you should totally read this book called Hype. Okay, so two books, right? So if you want to talk about this technology and everything, the
Mhm.
first book that I would tell you is Dune, which is like
Okay.
an all-time science fiction classic. It's written by Frank Herbert, if I'm not
Mhm.
mistaken.
Okay.
And this thing, okay, so the Dune book is on the premise that we humans have given up computers, and
Mhm.
now we have human computers.
Okay.
It's trippy. Just read it. And this
Okay.
probably, like this any technology which is sufficiently advanced is indistinguishable from magic. So this
Mhm.
Dune book actually, I would say, describes it wonderfully, where these people are
Mhm.
consuming this drug called the spice, and
Mhm.
this drug gives them superpowers, sort of superpowers,
Wow.
which enables them to perform highly complex calculations in their own brains. Sort of. I mean, and that's all I can say without giving anything away. But yeah,
Okay.
so first is Dune, and second is Hyperion. So
I
Hyperion,
feel.
yeah, Hyperion series like Hyperion, Fall of Hyperion, Endymion, and Rise of Endymion, if I'm not mistaken. But these four books also talk about a sufficiently advanced civilization, about how. So again, Hyperion is based on a trippy concept. It talks about these time tombs
Hmm.
and these time. So you and I and everything else in this world and this universe is traveling forward in time, right?
Okay.
But then there are these things called time tombs which travel backwards in time. Yeah, it's pretty
Okay.
good. Just like, yeah, but yeah, the concept's pretty trippy. So anybody listening who's interested in science fiction, and especially you, Shanky, because I know you are, read Dune and
I feel.
Hyperion, and there are audiobooks are out there. So just like go through them.
These are really good recommendations. Pretty interesting, actually. So, like, okay, just solar system, okay, agreeable, like, there might be life there. There is life here.
Dude.
What do you think, like, outside solar system? Like, if you consider, like, living beings on planet Earth, do you think there might be a similar being out there outside of our solar system
Yeah, well, of
that
course. I mean,
is
why
a
not?
living being but is not as smart as a human being?
Well, so there's this theory of the great filter, which is that again, this is related to the Fermi paradox, and it says something like this: that if there is intelligent life existing,
Hmm.
and there is a reason that it's not abundant as much as we expect it to,
Hmm.
and then there could be this great filter, this barrier,
Hmm.
wherein all life is not able to cross that barrier. So there could be two possibilities for humanity right now. Either we have already crossed the great barrier,
Hmm.
right? So great barrier could be something as mundane as life developing or life evolving from a single cellular life to a multicellular life, or rather the existence of a life is in itself the great barrier.
Hmm.
Because I think evolutionary biologists still believe that life was formed in these shallow pools
Hmm.
where certain chains of proteins linked together and form chains of amino acids.
Hmm.
And after that, we know that amino acids are obviously building blocks of life, and that is how life had started.
Hmm.
So the great filter, or or the great barrier could be something as mundane as that, or it could be maybe discovering nuclear fusion, or discovering nuclear fission, something as scientifically advanced as that. We never know. And I forgot what the question was. What was the
It
question?
was about life existing outside of.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
definitely. Uh, I mean, why not, right? I mean, there are thousands of not even thousands. There are millions of planets out there, in our very own galaxy. We're not even at this point, theoretically considering the entire universe. Like God knows how many. We cannot calculate that. However, we can calculate the number of viable planets. And I think Fermi's paradox states that there are at least at any given time 10,000 stars in our Milky Way which are capable of harboring intelligent life.
Why haven't they communicated to us yet?
Again, like we talked about this, right? So we've been only listening for answers for 70 years. So I think it would be very arrogant to just assume that nobody's tried to contact us because we've been looking for such a small time. So, we don't know whether we've been contacted or not.
So compared to the life that human beings have lived, we might have been contacted, we might not have been contacted, we'll never know.
There are several hypothetical explanations for this. So I think one of the explanation was that no other intelligent life has arisen. Like life might be insanely common in our Milky Way, as we talked before, single cellular life, multicellular life, plant life, or even to an extent animal life. But sentient intelligent species haven't arisen, or maybe the development of sentient species is rare. Honestly, Shangi, when do you think humans would have been considered sentient? Would you consider Neanderthals as sentient?
Well, yeah.
How do you define sentience?
Something which has intelligence to solve any problem.
No, okay. I would define sentience as when the being has the ability to question its own existence, it's sentient. Like you and I, we can ask the question, why do we exist? Or like we have a sense of self. And I don't think, like we know for sure that primates, like the current primates, monkeys, are obviously not sentient. Correct? To an extent, we believe that dolphins might be sentient. Right? Similarly, I don't believe that the Neanderthals or the ones who, Australopithecus, I don't know how to pronounce that. But
no worries, yeah.
I'm sorry. But so before Neanderthal, so I'm talking about the evolutionary stages, right? So probably 3 lakh years ago or 4 lakh years ago, we know for certain that Homo sapiens have evolved. Can you fact check that?
Yeah, sure.
I'm pretty certain human life evolved some 2-3 lakh years ago, but I think I'll need to fact check that. But so before that, life had existed on our planet for 1 million years. But so it's 5 lakh years ago. And around 3 lakh years ago, I was correct. About 3 lakh years ago, Homo sapiens appeared in Africa. So before that, they were Homo erectus. Well, yeah, okay. I'm going to pretend we didn't say that. Okay. But so we've existed for 3 to 4 lakh years ago. So before that, life existed for about 1 million years. For millions of years before that, right? But you couldn't consider that sentience, right? And even when there was sentient life, it was not until very recently that we could make our presence known to the universe, right? We discovered radio waves about a century ago, right? So one thing is for certain that whenever there is intelligence, the technological growth is exponential. It's slow at first, but when there is growth, it's like exponential growth.
Yeah.
So probably we haven't been looking out there for a very long time. It might be the reason that we haven't heard from anyone because like in our 300,000 years of existence, 70 years is a very short amount of time. Probably we might not encounter it. Probably our descendants, a few lakh years down the line might discover it. But interestingly, we have made attempts at contacting extraterrestrial life. If you're if we talk about SETI, or if we talk about the Arecibo message, or if we talk about the Pioneer and Voyager space probes.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like SETI had discovered this wow signal
Mm-hmm.
that was very famous throughout. It was said to be like something from like a alien life form. They received a signal for a few minutes and then they realized, okay, this is something new. This is not a local signal. It's something from extraterrestrial life.
Actually, I think before we before we jump to the conclusions that they were aliens, I think it's
Hmm.
much more probable. Okay, so this is how the wow signal went, right?
Hmm.
Um, it was a matrix,
Hmm.
and each number on that matrix represented the signal strength, and the telescope was scanning that
Hmm.
particular section of the sky.
Hmm.
So what the matrix represents is so each number represents the signal strength, right?
Hmm.
And the signal strength was programmed to vary from 0 to 9,
Hmm.
right? But if you look at the wow signal, we see a lot of letters over there,
Hmm.
right? So what happened was the telescope encountered a signal which we don't know because we were just analyzing the signal strength. We
Yeah.
weren't analyzing what the signal content was.
Hmm.
So for a brief moment, we received a signal which was much more stronger than the normal cosmic background radiation.
Hmm.
And because of that, instead of giving us numbers from 0 to 9, the computer started adding letters because the signal strength was, multitudes higher than what it was programmed to. And that is why
Hmm.
you see letters like E, G, F, J. And
Hmm.
the astronomer just circled it and wrote wow because that was something we had never seen before. But
Hmm.
it could be something as mundane as I mean, it's not a pulsar obviously, but it could be a very natural cosmological event. I mean, there was a
Hmm.
time when astronomers thought that pulsars were a source of extraterrestrial life, but then it turned out that it's just a
Hmm.
star which is spinning very fast.
Hmm. So reading of signals. So like there was a time when we could not actually understand what the signal from the cosmos actually meant. Now
Hmm.
we know better.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, if we had the kind of technology we have today, if we had it back then, probably we could have been able to analyze it further,
Hmm.
probably. And I'm pretty certain there are more chances of it being completely natural. I mean,
Hmm.
okay, I don't know if you follow astronomy, but a few years back, there was this huge ruckus about Tabby star. Have you heard of it?
No.
Okay, so generally, if I'm not wrong, this is about Kepler Space Telescope. Uh,
Okay.
they were observing a section of stars in the
Hmm.
sky,
Yeah.
and they found one star to be dimming much more unexpectedly, I would say, or much more variably than how natural stars dim. So,
Hmm.
so generally, okay. So this is related to exoplanet hunting. Okay,
Hmm.
if astronomers have to hunt for exoplanets,
Hmm.
what they do is they keep on observing a star,
Hmm.
right? And then there are two ways you can identify whether a star has exoplanets or not, and how many exoplanets a star has. So the
Okay.
first method is you keep observing the star,
Hmm.
and when a planet passes in front of it,
Hmm.
the light emitted by the star dims because there's something occulting the
Yeah.
light.
Yeah.
Uh, Second of all, gas giants or even planets as big as Earth have
Hmm.
their own gravitational pull.
Hmm.
So as much as the sun is acting its forces on the Earth
Hmm.
is acting on the sun because every action has an equal opposite reaction.
Yeah.
So when these planets pass in front of their parent star, the
Hmm.
star also tends to shift a little bit because
Hmm.
of the weight of the planet. So
Yeah.
using these two methods, we are able to identify the amount of exoplanets a star has. Now, Tabby was or is an astronomer who was
Hmm.
observing the star, and
Hmm.
she found that the star is dimming unexpectedly.
Hmm.
Uh, and then suddenly the internet was the internet had gone viral with the possibility that there is that the star is being surrounded by Dyson swarm,
Hmm.
uh, and now Dyson swarm is something entirely different. Like if you have to discuss that, then we could talk about probably Kardashev scale. But basically, astrophysicist Freeman Dyson had suggested that once a civilization reaches type 2 civilization, okay, so damn, I'm rambling. I think I should stop.
No, it's good. Like you said, type 2 civilization. Like, what is type 1 civilization?
Okay, I'm sorry. I get a little bit excited.
It's
But
fine.
yeah, so so Kardashev scale is a scale which is used to designate the apparent power of civilizations. I would say.
Okay.
Type 1 civilization is a civilization which has basically consumed all the resources, or which have harnessed all the resources of their parent planet. A type 2 civilization is a civilization which has basically tapped the entire, or which has harnessed the energy of their entire star. And a type 3 civilization would be an intergalactic civilization. You think Star Trek or you think Star Wars, that's a type 3 civilization.
Nice.
Um, but Freeman Dyson suggested that when a civilization became strong enough, their energy requirements would be very high, and the only way they could sustain themselves would be by directly feeding off the sun, right? So right now we are just like Earth is probably thousands of times smaller than the sun, right? So
Yeah.
we're only receiving a fraction of light emitted by the sun. Most
Yeah.
of the other light is just going off into space. So probably what they'll do a few thousand years later, when humans have evolved, would be they'd construct something known as a Dyson swarm, which would be these satellites which are orbiting our parent star very close. And what they do is they absorb the solar radiation and emit it in the form of microwaves, which we receive with the receivers and then convert that to energy and we use it. But one side effect of this Dyson swarm would be that you would see exactly the same kind of dimming which Tabby's star was exhibiting.
Okay.
And because of that, people were very quick to point out
Jump to
that, you know
conclusion.
what, aliens, because that is the whole thing. But later on, I think it was debunked and it was found out that it's not a Dyson swarm, but it's just a protoplanetary cloud. So basically, that star was in the process of its planetary formation. And when it's forming planets, it's surrounded by a sea, or it's surrounded by a sea of gases and dust. And that is what was causing the unusual dimming and not aliens. So I think it would be, I mean, it would have to be incredibly lucky to just see alien life.
Yeah, that's true.
In
Probably.
such a small span. I mean, we've just been looking for 70 years. So for us to just witness alien life within a lifetime, we would have to be incredibly lucky.
Wow. So if we actually do, then we'll literally be lucky.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the UFO videos that was released by NASA, not NASA, NSA, I think, just few months back.
Actually, I think that was debunked by someone. I think it was debunked by a YouTube channel called Thunderfoot, who had scientifically proven that okay, so basically, UFO just means unidentified flying object, right?
Yes,
So
right.
if you aren't able to identify a
Identify.
flying object, it can be a drone, it can be an enemy plane, it can be a
Yeah,
bird.
yeah.
It's still a UFO, right? But it was proven that that UFO was a duck. It was a duck who was migrating.
Okay.
Because
So that debunked, no aliens flying on the outer space, so no any probing here and there, and your cows are also not getting kidnapped.
I mean, yeah, not that we know of.
So, like, just like going back to evolution. So, like you said, like evolution, like basically from a unicellular to a multicellular organism. Just taking like Earth as a best case scenario where there's a habitable planet with a star as the source.
All right.
And a unicellular organism is formed luckily, or I don't know with what word you can use to actually create a living organism altogether.
Yeah, I mean, things have to go in exactly a particular way. I mean, the protein chains have to, and this is us talking about a carbon-based life form, okay? So
Yeah.
it's a silica-based life form because since silica is the second most abundant thing which we found on Earth. So it's safe to assume that silica might also be abundant on some planets. So it's very possible that some life might be silica based, some other life might be hydrocarbon based. So we never know.
So I'll just use the word lucky here because that was like precisely at that particular moment that
Yeah, exactly.
unicellular life was formed,
Mm-hmm.
and then it grew into multicellular life form, and
Right.
then into aquatic life form, then to a land, and then from the same unicellular organism there was like trees, plants, and the same organisms were fishes, dinosaurs, human beings. Would you consider like plant growing in a interstellar um, space body as an alien, or you'll
Wait.
just
Um, do you mean plants growing in space on their own or plants growing on a planet?
on a planet? Obviously, on a planet.
Yeah, definitely. Why not? I mean, plants have to be the most abundant life form out there because look at Earth.
Hmm.
I mean, vegetation is the most abundant life. Well, no, algae is the most abundant life form or plankton. But yeah, plants are like very close. I mean, the different types of vegetation we have, right from like blades of grass to trees, the variety is huge. So it's highly possible, don't you think?
Yeah, I do think the same. Like it's like so overestimated that okay, alien life form means you'll find the green little men somewhere on different planets. But what if the planet you're looking for is habitable and has plant life forms on them?
Yeah,
Plants obviously cannot communicate with you using satellites or some high tech
yeah, exactly.
communication
So,
equipments. There's
dude,
still alien life forms.
even if some planets out there have life,
Hmm.
but probably they are on our equivalent of medieval times. They
Hmm.
are still intelligent. They still know their existence. They're sentient,
Hmm.
but they aren't able to communicate because they haven't invented the radio waves. Or perhaps,
Hmm.
okay, okay, this might sound out there and completely crazy, but think about it.
Hmm.
Don't you think? Okay, so we use radio waves to communicate
Yeah.
because of our senses, because of the senses that we've developed. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
for all we know, how we communicate visually,
Hmm.
right? Or okay, like humans tend to communicate audio visually. We either speak or we write things down,
Yeah.
right? There could be entire species out there which communicate using smells.
Wow.
There could be, yeah, I mean, there could be species out there which communicate, I mean, there could be an entire species which exists. I mean, it's very arrogant for us to, and again, I'm saying this is out there. Like, okay, this is like conspiracy territory.
No,
Like,
it's not conspiracy. It's like
yeah,
theoretical, hypothetically
yeah,
speaking.
hypothetically speaking,
Yeah.
correct, exactly. So currently, we just assume that all life is solid.
Hmm.
Why do we assume that? I mean, could it be that life? I mean, could life be liquid? Maybe. Who knows? Could life be gaseous? Who knows? We perceive the electromagnetic spectrum
Hmm.
as in the form of light, and we only perceive a very narrow part of that electromagnetic spectrum,
Yeah.
right? And we call that light, and we communicate and we exist, or like we can thank most of our existence because of that perception.
Hmm.
Now, it could be very much possible that these aliens, if they exist and if they're sentient, and even if they are as developed as we are,
Hmm.
they are they are perceiving this universe in an entirely new sense altogether, something we haven't even heard of, something we haven't even discovered. For
Wow.
them, that could be very basic. For us, we've unheard of it. For them, radio might be something, science fiction.
Wow.
So it could be very possible that they are trying to communicate with us, but we don't know where, because the radio spectrum is huge, right?
Yeah.
But we don't know where to look, and we've been only looking for a very small amount of time.
True. True. But there's also possibility, like you said, if there was a sentient being that might have existed like even a few million or billion years ago, human beings have already sent out beacons in space. So that beacons is usually like shouting out, "Hey, I'm here. We exist."
Yeah,
So
but you're shouting out into the void. Like it would be
yeah.
like a crazy man standing at the beach and yelling.
Hmm.
I mean, there are some chances that some dude on the boat is going to be like, okay, kya bol raha hai ye? But mostly it's just going to be unheard, right?
Yeah.
So I know what you're talking about. I think you're referring to the Voyager probes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but they're traveling incredibly slow, don't you think? Like we've launched them in the 70s and they've barely reached the edge of the solar system now.
Hmm.
So probably they would be reaching their destination. And what are the chances that those probes get captured by the stars that we have aimed, at? And then what are the chances further that the probe doesn't get lost in the debris? Because if you scan our solar system with the
Hmm.
radar,
Hmm.
there are huge amounts of asteroids out there, right? And
Yeah.
most of them are ferrous in nature. So
Hmm.
it would be virtually indistinguishable. I mean, this probe, if it entered hypothetically a system, it
Hmm.
would be very difficult to, differentiate it between a normal asteroid and, something man-made or something which has been made by an intelligence.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be very possible at this very time that Earth has some interstellar probes lodged in, but we can't
Hmm.
differentiate them with other asteroids.
Hmm. Yeah. Just a second. Okay. As we earlier talked about wow signal, like without knowing what is actually happening, has any space entity taken interest in finding out where is it coming from or what is going out there?
I mean, they did try to listen to that part of the sky for
Hmm.
years later, but they didn't find anything special coming out of it. And this is exactly why I said that it's totally possible that it was just a one-time natural phenomenon.
Hmm.
Like, for example, if aliens, quote unquote, were to, aim their telescopes at our sun, they
Yeah.
would most likely, after a period of time,
Hmm.
probably catch some of our radio emissions. Probably.
Hmm.
Again, inverse square law is a bitch. So
Yeah.
probably after a few hundred light years, we wouldn't be audible
Hmm.
unless a strong enough signal was sent. But I think we have sent out much more stronger systems aimed at stars, which were much more probable to have I mean, so the stars which the astronomers thought could be harboring life, we
Hmm.
have already aimed some radio messages at those stars.
Hmm.
But it's again, as we talked about before,
Yeah.
those planets need to be first harboring life, then
Hmm.
they need to be at an evolutionary stage where they've discovered radio
Hmm.
waves,
Hmm.
then they need to have radio telescopes pointed at our system at that time. So it's like a long shot that they'll receive our message. But
Hmm.
there is this a very popular message called the Arecibo message, which was sent from the Arecibo Radio Observatory,
Hmm.
and this message uh, was consisting of numbers like from 0 to 10, because math is the universal language.
Hmm.
Then it talked it gave us so the ICO message also talks about, I think, DNA.
Hmm.
uh, it talks about nucleotide chains.
Hmm.
It talks about how our DNA is made out of a double helix structure. It basically gave an outline of a human form, and it gave it basically designated what planet the signal was coming from. So,
Okay.
and this was sent in the 1970s, and probably several times after that also we've tried to beam messages towards the stars. I think there's one message called a teenage message,
Hmm.
which was sent from Russia, which consisted of us sending music to these stars.
Hmm.
Um, because, well, again, music is again based on mathematics. Music is just patterns which are
Yeah.
repeated,
Hmm.
right? So again, we believe that a if an intelligent species encounters it, they might correlate it to certain repeating patterns, and they might. I mean, again, this is again a long shot, but yeah, we've done that.
Yeah. So this all lies into the probability that if or if not
Yeah, dude,
there
it's
is life
like
form.
absolutely a long shot. Like I'm telling you, they need to be intelligent.
Hmm.
If they are intelligent, then they need to have discovered radio waves. If they have discovered radio waves, they need to have discovered radio astronomy, and they need to be interested in that. Then they need to have their telescopes exactly aimed at our star system
Yeah.
to receive that. So it's like a long, because we've been trying to communicate with the stars for a very long time. I mean, even in the 60s, the USSR back then had again sent a Morse code message saying some peace or world or something, or Lenin or something. I'm very certain. Back in the 60s, when like USSR was at its height, right? So we've been trying to do that for a very long time, but the chances that somebody will hear it and then reply is a long shot. And even if they do reply, we are not going to be around to get the answer.
Yeah. So like a super, super long shot.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be 50, 60,000 years when the message reaches them. And then if they've received it, it's going to be another 50, 60,000 years till we get the message. So yeah, don't hold your breath. That's what I would say.
Yeah. Okay. So like as an end note, like what do you think if like humans actually are alien species that landed on planet Earth? What's your take on that?
I mean, why not? I mean, it could be a possibility. Nobody knows how life on Earth started. So it could be very possible that life on Earth was seeded by a dormant, life form which came to Earth in the form of a comet or in the form of an asteroid. And when it impacted, it found conditions to be just right. It multiplied, it evolved, and we are where we are right now. I mean, it's entirely possible, but it probably didn't happen. I don't know. It's completely out there.
A whole lot of speculations there.
Yeah, exactly. You can't call that a scientific educated guess. It's probably a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, like based on conspiracy theory, the most interesting theory that I saw was like when we see at Mars right now, it looks like a desolated planet. It's inhabitable zone. And it's desolated. So there's a possibility that we might have lived on planet Mars long time ago. And because we made it so that it's uninhabitable, we took over planet Earth. And now we are on Earth and we have made Earth so inhabitable that when we reach
You're
the
going to go back
limit,
there
we'll
again.
go back to Mars again.
तो मतलब यही चलते रहेगा. No, but actually, right? So after the study of geological features on the surface of Mars, astronomers were able to successfully deduce that water did exist at one point of time on Mars.
Yeah.
And one thing that we know is where there's water, there's life, generally. So it could have been entirely possible that life once existed on Mars. Now, whether, I mean, it again has to be a long shot that somehow an asteroid got launched from Mars and then it got intercepted by Earth and it then got seeded on Earth. I mean, it's again a long shot, but yeah, it's a possibility. But however, I am fairly certain that life might have existed on Mars because at one point of time, Mars had liquid water on it. And water is the most important resource for life, and there's no life without water. So, yeah, it's a possibility. I mean, back then, Mars was said to have an atmosphere, meaning it was able to trap heat from the sun, meaning it was much more hotter than what it is right now. So, it's entirely possible that, millions of years ago, probably life, or maybe billions of years ago, who knows, life did exist on Mars.
Wow. So we'll only know when we go to Mars.
Yeah. I mean, if there is any evidence of it, who knows? It's been an awfully long amount of time.
Yeah, like there are things that might.
Yeah, they might. I mean, definitely there's going to be. So this is exactly why they need to, while they finalize the site for landing, they need to find a spot where they'll be able to study all these geological features because there is a lot of history hidden out there, like different layers of, I mean, these, like, there are geological features with like multiple layers, just, showing us that water has existed on this planet in liquid form for hundreds of thousands of years. And it's not just a one-off thing.
So we basically have to drill down Mars.
Drill down or study the features. I mean, if you look at the Grand Canyon or dude. Like, I mean,
Yeah, the rock actually shows like
yeah,
bits.
like different layers show
Hmm.
different periods of,
Hmm.
and then there are certain geological features which you can carbon date or which you can analyze to find out what era they are from.
Yeah, that's true. That's great. So, alien life might have existed, might exist, is existing right now.
Probably we will never
Um,
know, and I don't think for at least a few thousand years until we have discovered FTL travel or
mhm.
FTL communication, we'll be able to communicate with them. And again, I don't know. I mean, so they say that during first contact, the weaker species never survives. So what do you think about that?
Wow. Okay. That's something very ominous.
I mean, do we really want first contact at this point? Because if somebody is strong enough to come to Earth, they are probably 1,000 years ahead on the evolution path compared to us.
True.
And look at our own human history, dude. Like every time an inferior race or an inferior, I mean by inferior I don't mean I mean by that I mean technologically inferior. Don't
Hmm.
yeah. Anyway, so every time a technologically inferior group of people has encountered a technologically superior group of people, it has
Hmm.
almost always led to the certain destruction of the technologically inferior group. Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if we do encounter alien species coming to Earth, right, it's probably not going to end well for us.
True. But like every other movie will just nuke them.
I mean, if they are able to travel from another star system at FTL speeds and survive the journey and then come to Earth,
A nuke
our,
wouldn't
our
do
nukes are
much.
not going to do shit.
Yeah, true, true, true. I agree with you there. Let's see if we can talk peace with them.
Yeah, I mean, there's only one reason they would come to Earth. I mean, our Earth isn't that special. Our sun isn't that special. So, I mean, our Earth, our sun isn't special at all. It's a very small type of a star. It's medium sized. There's nothing special about it. It's just a run of the mill star.
See,
So
Earth is only special because it has water and there is life form.
yeah, but
That's the
then
only thing that
again,
makes Earth special.
then
Sun,
again, there
hmm.
might be. I'm sorry, what?
Sun, like you'll find millions or billions of sun-like stars all over the universe.
Yeah, if I'm not wrong, it's called a Type M star, right? Like I think our sun is a Type M star. Can you? I don't know. I think you'll have to fact check, but I think it's either a yeah. I think it's an M type star.
Okay, I'm not.
But but basically it's a very normal type of so there's nothing special about us. So
Hmm.
it's not like if we were to be visited by any extraterrestrial species, they're
Hmm.
coming here for our resources because we have nothing special. There are planetary systems out there or star systems out there which are much more richer in resources than our very own sun. So we can be certain that they are not coming here for getting resources.
Yeah.
So if they're coming here, they're either coming here to communicate with us or they're coming here
Hmm.
to destroy us. It's either one of those two possibilities. Nobody else is going to take the pains to travel thousands of light years across the Milky Way to just say hi.
Yeah, but nobody would come thousands of years to just to destroy.
I mean,
Like if we
technically,
cannot
yeah,
travel,
maybe.
we don't pose any threat to them. Like maybe they can like take us away as slaves or something. But then if they are technologically advanced so much,
They
I
don't need
think
to.
their machineries are very well enough to do things so efficiently that they don't need anything.
Yeah.
Like they don't
I
even need
mean,
resources. They can just extract resources whenever from wherever they want.
so there's this popular science fiction trope called the ants on a highway.
Okay.
So it's like if, okay, compare yourself to an ant, right? An
Okay.
ant is also a social creature. It lives in a colony. It's
Yeah.
intelligent to an extent, right?
Hmm.
So imagine how intelligent we are compared to an ant, right?
Yeah.
Now imagine if the same thing is true about the extraterrestrial life visiting us. Imagine if they are so intelligent that compared to them we are ants,
Yeah.
right? So if they're building probably a highway,
Hmm.
right, which passes. it's just a thought experiment. Okay, it's
Yeah. Okay.
hypothetical, right? But if they are building a highway which passes through our solar system, you really think they're going to take permission from us? I mean, do you take permission from ants when you're building a road, or do you take permission from the squirrels or the insects when you're building a road? No, they're just
No.
insects. You don't give a fuck about them.
Yeah.
You just build shit, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So, could be possible that they would be so much more advanced than us that they probably don't give a shit about us.
They'll probably ignore us.
Yeah, ignore us or probably crush us. Probably killing us would be just like stomping a cockroach for them.
Mhm.
Probably.
But
It could be a possibility.
As much as I consider this scenario, being a sentient being or a creature, even if it's an extraterrestrial alien being, you would always be curious about new things. Like humans, I'm not sure, but human beings as such are not common throughout the universe. But when a being, as if they are like as advanced as a human in this scenario, and we as ants in this scenario, because this is first time you're looking at a new creature on the ground, you definitely watch it and not disturb it, because it's new that you're watching it. Unless it's threatening you or doing something that you are being hurt or something, you'll just destroy it.
Yeah, but think about it like this. What are the okay? What if for them life in physical form is rudimentary, right? What if they're so much more advanced than us that they've entirely transcended this physical form, that they exist only in higher dimensions, or they exist in a software form or something like that. So basically they don't have physical dimensions to their bodies, right? So for them, any life which exists in physical dimensions would be something very rudimentary and very crude, something not worth saving. Probably something akin to paramecia or bacteria. Do you really think about how many bacteria you're crushing when you walk on the floor? I mean, when you're walking, no, right? I mean,
No.
they're insignificant. So it could be also possible. I mean, it's again, you might think I'm being cynical, but
Speculation and a hypothetical scenario.
yeah, again, it's totally possible.
Totally okay.
I mean, why not, right? Universe is huge. I mean, universe is so huge that we haven't seen it's infinite.
Yeah, it's infinite. I agree with
So in this infinite universe, do you think that there might not be a life form which has transcended physical being? And again, I'm not trying to be spiritual here. I'm trying to be purely scientific, right?
There is a possibility. There's possibility for anything.
Yeah. I mean, universe is infinite, and by infinite, by its own definition, means everything is possible.
Yeah.
There are infinite amounts of possibility.
Yeah, true. Wow.
That was trippy.
Infinite possibility. Yeah, pretty trippy. This was great conversation with you, Dhananjay, regarding extraterrestrial life beings in the universe.
Huh, I mean, yeah, very trippy, and yeah, I like being here.
It's
talk
good
about
to have
nice
you
things.
actually. Yeah, it's very interesting, and like it actually churns your brain, and like the curiosity grows bigger. So that's how you try to satiate your curiosity. So thank you for being on Curiously Chaotic.
Thanks, Shanky.
See you next time.
I'd be glad to be here.
Thank you guys for listening. This was amazing episode with Dhananjay on extraterrestrial life, aliens. If you guys like this episode, please like, share and subscribe to this podcast on Anchor as well as Spotify. Thank you guys for listening and see you next time.